Hebrews. This is Prophets of Awakening. This is our Women's Advanced Bible Study night, the 13th of July, 2023. Okay, what we'll be doing is reading out of the book of Esther. That's what will be our topic. Okay. And for those that don't know, they want, need the information, you can go to our YouTube channel, the Prophets of Awakening, and check out our videos. We got a lot of videos, and they got a lot of information going on. They'll lead you to these videos will lead you into the truth of the Holy Scriptures. So if you like what you're hearing and receiving, I'm asking you to subscribe to the channel. And for those that feel the need to support the channel, you can see our cash app at the bottom of the screen. Okay. So with that being said, this is a non-Messianic channel. We deal with Tanakh, the so-called Old Testament, so-called Book of Remembrance, and the Torah, which is the books of the law, first 5 books of the Old Testament that was given to Moses by the Lord Host. Shalom and welcome, the Prophets of Awakening, and welcome to our Women's Advanced Bible Study. We're going to do our moment of silence, and then we're going to just some current events. We're going to leave no information, then we'll open it up for some Q&A. Okay. Oh Lord, I pray into the Lord my God. We make our confessions, oh Lord, the great and dreadful God. Keep your covenant and mercy to them that love thee and to them that keep thy commandments. O Lord, righteousness belongeth unto thee, but unto us a confusion of face as it is this day, to the men of Judah, and unto the inhabitants of Jerusalem, and unto all Israel that are near and that are far off, through all the countries whither thou hast driven us, because of our trespass that we have trespassed against thee. O Lord, hear this prayer and cause our face to shine upon thy sanctuary and our people, for your sake. O Lord, open our eyes and incline our ears to hear and behold our condition. O Lord, hear. O Lord, forgive. O Lord, hearken and do and defer not for thy own sake. For your people need you so very much at this hour. Peace be unto you. Okay, so with that being said, I'll read because somebody read a psalm.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay.
My psalm is in Psalm 15. The characters of those who may
Okay.
dwell in the Lord. Can you hear me? Can y'all hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Lord, who may abide in your tabernacle? Who may dwell in your holy hill? 2. He who walks uprightly and works righteousness and speaks the truth in his heart. He who does not backbite with his tongue, nor does evil to his neighbor, nor does he take up a reproach against his friends, in whose eyes a vile person is despised, but he honors those who fear the Lord. He who swears to his own hurt and does not change. He who does not put out his money at usury, nor does he take a bribe against the innocent. He who does these things shall never be moved. I read Psalms 15, 1 through 5. But
Okay. Any comments on that?
yes, right here it's like the last one, who does all these things shall never be moved. So we are constantly repenting, trying to do the right thing, not go against our neighbor, show ourselves by reading and studying and learning who Howard is, Yahweh is, and just doing the right things that He commanded us to do.
Okay. Anybody else have any comments? Okay, we're gonna go to our women's health moment. And,
Shalom, everyone. Um, Please note that the information that is shared is intended for general, informational, and educational purposes only and is not medical advice or recommended treatment. Tonight's discussion is on vegetables that help improve your skin condition. From the daily stresses of life to the food choices that we make at each meal, many factors can influence skin health. Drinking plenty of water, getting enough sleep, exercising regularly, and consuming foods good for skin and hair may help you to feel and look your best. There are certain foods such as dairy products and chocolate that are known for their correlation to acne and inflamed skin. While these may be stereotypes or depend on the person, there are certain foods that do just the opposite, and that is vegetables. Vegetables are your friends, inside inside and out. Several vegetables can help improve skin condition due to their nutrient content and beneficial properties. Let's start with vitamin C and the vegetables that are rich in vitamin C. Vitamin C preserves youthfulness. Vegetables rich in vitamin C are among the best foods for skin repair because this well-known vitamin is a potent antioxidant associated with brightening and anti-aging skin benefits. Vitamin vegetables high in vitamin C include broccoli, bell peppers, kale, spinach, snow peas, and Brussels sprouts. Beta carotene protects skin from aggressors. Vegetables rich in beta carotene include sweet potatoes, carrots, kale, spinach, bell peppers, and romaine lettuce. Vitamin E promotes firmness. The following vegetables high in vitamin E may be some of the best foods for skin repair: spinach, Swiss chard, bell peppers, sweet potatoes, asparagus, and mustard greens. So remember that food is absorbed much better than topical products, which can only absorb into the outermost layer of skin. Focus on consuming foods that contribute to your overall health with an emphasis on vegetables good for the skin. Limit your consumption of fried foods, desserts, sugar, and processed foods to prevent flare ups. By this reasoning, the foods you consume either contribute to skin protection or skin damage. And I just have a little question here. Can anyone remember the two vegetables that was mentioned in each category?
okay. Lettuce,
That
one
will
of them,
be
right?
that will be bell peppers and spinach. Bell peppers and spinach is a great source of vitamin E, beta carotene, and vitamin C. So those two vegetables you cannot go wrong with. I'm going to read Psalms 139, verse 14. Praise to the all knowing God. I will praise thee, for I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Marvelous are thy works, and that my soul knoweth right well. Tonight's discussion was on vegetables that help improve skin condition, and I read Psalms 139, verse 14. Praise to the all knowing God.
Okay. Yeah. Appreciate that information. Um, I hope somebody got something out of that. Um, we're gonna move on into our current events. Okay.
How long does it take to upgrade?
Welcome to Asian Quick Take. I'm Jacob. Get ready for an in-depth analysis of the latest news and developments in global affairs, international relations, and technology. On July 8th, the U.S. released its latest non-farm payrolls data, which fell short of expectations but still showed a strong labor market. In addition, the U.S. private employment data was also better than expected. However, these data pushed the market's expectations for the Federal Reserve to continue to raise interest rates, leading to a surge in U.S. bond yields. The market saw a sharp sell-off. Among them, the U.S. 10-year U.S. bond yields reached the highest level in more than 4 months. The 2-year U.S. bond yields also touched the highest point since June 2007. A few days ago, the Federal Reserve released minutes of a meeting that was more hawkish than the market had expected, with almost all policymakers anticipating more interest rate hikes and the need for further policy tightening in 2023. The minutes sent a clear signal to the market that financing costs will become more expensive in the future. The futures market's expectation that the Fed will end its 2-day meeting on July 26th with a 25 basis point rate hike has risen to 92.4%, according to the Chase's CME's Fed Rate Watch tool. This suggests that the U.S. bond market is repricing itself to accommodate Fed tightening and recessionary expectations for the U.S. growth outlook. A new report released by the Federal Reserve on July 6 points out that the financial sector's damaging impact on U.S. economic activity is intensifying, the worst since the U.S. plunged into a financial crisis 15 years ago. Financial conditions in the U.S. are now at their tightest in more than a decade and are expected to drag down economic growth by about 1 percentage point next year and push the U.S. banking and bond markets to the brink of collapse. This comes after the Fed paused raising interest rates in early June, largely to see how a broad-based tightening of financial conditions could put pressure on the economy and the banking sector, especially as inflationary pressures wane. In addition, there are more than 700 banks in the U.S. facing significant safety and solvency risks due to losses of more than 50% on their balance sheets. The Federal Reserve has stated that interest rate hikes are the catalyst for massive losses at U.S. banks, which will force these banks to stockpile more U.S. dollars, leading to a shortage of dollars in an era of high interest rates. Some of the United States shadow banks with weak risk tolerance face the possibility of financial crisis at any time, which will further damage the United States' financial reputation. With the Federal Reserve's interest rate hike is expected to stimulate the dollar index and market interest rates to rise further, credit tightening will make the bank loan costs suddenly rise, may lead to the United States enterprises face financing difficulties, which further affects the United States of America's GDP. 80% of the proportion of the expenditure on consumer services. Such a situation would lead to a further decline in the revenues of the U.S. Treasury and the Federal Reserve, directly affecting their ability to cope with their own debt bailout. Ultimately, this will cause the world to lose confidence in the ability of the United States to repay its huge debt, while undermining the credibility of the U.S. Treasury and trust in the U.S. financial system. The banking crisis in the United States is far from over, and a larger credit crunch storm is on the horizon. Clearly, the credit crunch is one of the major challenges facing the U.S. economy today. The petrodollar, the foundation that underpins the U.S. debt Ponzi scheme, is on a historic downward trajectory. Some Wall Street prognosticators say that the global oil market and the international reserve assets in the field of the new pattern shows that the oil, dollar, U.S. debt as the core of the dollar system has been a problem and will be built on the U.S. debt Ponzi scheme and a house of cards on the petrodollar push to the brink of collapse. In fact that the United States has raised the debt ceiling again has already proved this point. Back in 2000, Nobel Prize winner Milton Friedman described the U.S. debt at the time as the biggest Ponzi scheme on earth. Some Wall Street financial giants argued that the U.S., as the world's largest debtor, with its excessive money printing and ubiquitous debt, would eventually pay the price. Already, U.S. debt creditors around the world have begun an accelerated liquidation sell-off that will undoubtedly shake the fundamental logic of U.S. economic growth, weaken the dollar's monetary dividend, and diminish the dollar's ability to export inflation and mint taxes for cutting.
Yeah, so you notice they keep using the word Ponzi scheme to when it comes to the American economy and it's collapsing. You know, if you go back to Madoff, they was using that same thing with Bernie Madoff when he made Madoff with all that money. And all these people they mentioned, you know, they Jews too. So, but keep in mind what they was talking about, how that they see that the banking system and the economic system is wavering. So keep that in mind when I play the need to know information. We got one more current event, then I'll go to that.
Well, it looks like banks are in trouble yet again. And this time it's a big systemically important bank, not one of those smaller systemically important banks. This time it's Bank of America.
Okay, so let's look at that. Bank of America, right? Remember what happened before with Lehman Brothers. Like I was saying, these bankers, these Esau, pure-blooded Edomites, they orchestrating all this. So back in 07 and 08, they used Lehman Brothers and collapsed the economy. Now here we go, Bank of America. But not only that, remember what I showed you about the mural that they had. They got on the wall, this big mural on the wall in Bank of America. But it's black sun, this red-headed big boy standing on the square and all that. So it's not a coincidence when I look at it that all of a sudden Bank of America is collapsing, which is supposed to be too big to fail, like they said with Lehman Brothers. But these people are orchestrating all this.
Showing over $100 billion worth of unrealized losses. But first, a word from today's sponsor, I Trust Capital. Investors today face all sorts of new and unique power. Invest in crypto and watch frauds like Sam Bankman-Fried steal all your money. This has many investors looking to alternative stores of value like gold and Bitcoin. The problem with this is that most investors are not able to act. This is where I Trust Capital comes in. I Trust Capital allows you to retirement like gold, silver, and Bitcoin because they do things the right way. You own your asset. You will get $100 worth of Bitcoin just for signing up. What is the problem and what is not the problem with banks like Bank of America today? If you've heard me explain this 1,000 times, skip forward. When you give $1 to the bank as a deposit, the bank has to do something with that dollar in order to make money. If they just held on to that dollar, they would have no way to make money off of it. They'd shut their doors unless they charge you fees just for holding on to your money. And today, people don't like doing that. So they take your dollar and they go invest it so they can make a profit with your dollar. The main thing that banks buy, that they invest in with your dollars, is bonds. But over the last year or so, the value of bonds have fallen dramatically. This means banks all over the country and all over the world are sitting on a massive pile of losses right now. But why is it that those bonds have fallen in price? Well, it comes down to the way that bonds work and the fact that interest rates are being pushed up by central banks all around the world right now. So let's say I borrow $100 from you at 1% interest rate. That means in 1 year, I'm going to owe you the $100 back plus $1. And the reason why I'm able to borrow from you at 1% is because that's the going rate. That's what everybody is paying for debt right now. So if you wanted to loan your money to somebody else instead of me, everybody is doing 1% right now. There's lots of borrowers and lots of lenders. And so if you want to be a lender, you're going to have to lend it at a 1%. Because if you go to somebody else and say you want to lend it at 2%, they'll say no because they're just going to borrow it from somebody else at 1%. So you of losses. Now, it's key to note that with the collapse of banks like Signature Bank and Silicon Valley Bank and First Republic, they were forced to sell these loans because they took dollars from depositors, purchased these investments. The investments went down in value. Then the depositors wanted their money back. The bank had to sell those assets to produce the dollars to give the deposits back, but the investments weren't worth enough in order to redeem all those deposits. So these banks that failed never planned on selling those assets. They were forced to because of a bank run. Now, the likelihood of a bank run happening with Bank of America after the Federal Reserve's intervention to bail out the depositors of the last couple banks is very unlikely, but the chances are not zero. If too many people who have their money at Bank of America right now get spooked and say, no, I'd rather have my money at Chase, because Chase, a much larger bank, has only $36 billion in unrealized losses, or they want to move their money to something like a money market fund so they can have a much higher yield. There is a risk that Bank of America will be forced to sell some of these assets at a loss, and those unrealized paper losses then turn into real realized losses. Now, Bank of America is absolutely considered too big to fail. It is a GSIB, a globally systemically important bank. And as Zoltan Pozar pointed out in a recent interview with Bloomberg, the BTFP is part of the system now. It is a standard feature. Remember, the BTFP is the Bank Term Funding Program. The Bank Term Funding Program offers cash to banks in exchange for U.S. Treasuries. So when banks come under stress, instead of having to unload those assets that are at a loss on the market, they can just give them temporarily to the Federal Reserve in exchange for a much larger amount of cash. Usage of this facility is what caused the Federal Reserve's balance sheet to spike in March of this year. So we know that Bank of America is not going to be allowed to fail. They'll unload these toxic assets, which are really just government treasuries, to the Federal Reserve, at least temporarily. But this is evidence of more rot in the system than people are aware of. The entire structure is shifting right now and is becoming more and more unstable by the day. Number one, everyone has losses. This is not just Bank of America. This is every single bank. While the big ones have big numbers, you can see that every single bank has a large red number right now. Number two, the biggest players in the world in the bond markets are all sellers right now. This has never been true before in history. The tick data on Treasury.
So we see right here with these two videos how what an American financial system is, especially with the banks. So let's look at what this need to know information. This is what China is doing as of today.
It's because the U.S. attracts top talent from around the world, as people from various countries come to study, settle, and work in the U.S. and even obtain American citizenship. With the support of talent, U.S. tech companies have gained core competitiveness. However, the U.S. is not friendly to foreign scientists, and there are various restrictions. Moreover, China's technology development has been rapidly advancing in recent years, and 3,876 scientists have already returned to China. Foreign media have reported it is impossible to stop them. The U.S. is currently using its technological advantage to impose.
So China calling back all their scientists. And they already have been put sanctions on America when it comes to those ships. So now they pulling all their scientists, like 400 and some, 4,000 scientists, calling them back to China.
Various restrictions on other countries' technology, including China's semiconductor and 5G technologies, which are within the scope of U.S. attention. Many Chinese companies' component technologies are also related to U.S. technology. Therefore, when the U.S. uses technology as a point of entry, it does have a certain impact on Chinese enterprises. Rather than saying that the U.S. is restricting technology, it is better to say that it is using its talent resources to suppress other countries' technology.
Quit going to college.
Why does the U.S. attract so much talent? On the one hand, the U.S. has the world's highest level of education system, with many excellent higher education and research institutions, attracting many talented people from around the world to study and research. On the other hand, the U.S. has a high-level economy and industry, providing high-quality talent with generous salaries and benefits, which attracts many excellent people from around the world to work and live. With these talented individuals, the U.S. constantly digests and absorbs their research results, transforming them into industrial development force. However, the U.S. has undergone significant changes in its attitude towards talent in recent years. Chinese scientists in the U.S. have not received good treatment, visas for international students are subjected to various restrictions, and Chinese American scientists working in the U.S. are accused of various reasons. In 2018, the U.S. launched the China Initiative, which will limit Chinese companies' investment in the U.S. and restrict the number of Chinese international students. The academic atmosphere and research environment that many people long for in the U.S. have been destroyed by the U.S. itself. If one continues to stay in the U.S., unexpected things may happen. Additionally, the U.S. economy has fallen into a quagmire, and during public health emergencies, inflation has become a significant issue, corporate revenue and profits have declined, and large-scale layoffs have begun. In contrast, China's technology is developing rapidly, and industries such as 5G, artificial intelligence, the Internet of Things, and semiconductors are all in the high-speed development stage, providing more opportunities for Chinese scientists studying abroad in the U.S. As a result, a large number of scientists have returned to China. According to statistics, from 2020 to the present in 2023, 3,876 Chinese scientists have returned to China. Some have become deans or professors at Chinese universities, and some have joined Chinese companies. They continue to shine in their respective fields. Foreign media have reported that stopping Chinese scientists' return to China is impossible. The trend of Chinese scientists returning to China has become apparent as Chinese technology rapidly develops and the U.S. persecutes foreign scientists.
Okay, so like I said before, if you can't see what's going on, something wrong. I mean, it's like it ain't gonna last long. They throwing everything at the U.S. Everything, the kitchen sink and everything. They're trying to bring this place down, and it's gonna go down real soon. So, anybody got a comment? Okay, I'm gonna open it up for some questions, comments, or anything before we go into the. We're gonna be reading out of the Book of Esther. We'll read a few chapters out of there, and break it down, talk about it. Okay, no comments, no questions. Let me play this right here, and then we'll go into the topics.
That food fraud is a $50 billion industry, and that's according to the Michigan State University Food Fraud Initiative. And you're probably eating some of it right now. So from Kobe beef to Parmesan cheese, restaurants and grocery stores are packed with foods that aren't quite what they seem. Food makers and retailers cutting corners and hiking up prices can result in feeding consumers some less than truthful market. So we are definitely about to make a really nice smoothie.
So this coming from Chinese too.
I have been juicing off and on. Today, I just want a smoothie and I want to feel full, and hopefully it'll tide me over till dinner. And I don't know, I might not even have dinner, because after reading this story, you just don't know what you are getting. Now, transparency is more important in the world of food than ever before. Consumers want to know exactly what they are eating. I don't know about you. Let me know in the comments. Do you want to know what you're eating? Because I certainly want to know what I am intaking. I'm about to give you 8 foods that might not be what you think they are. And I'm back, fam. We're about to make this smoothie. It is going to be an apple and banana smoothie. I'm adding flax seeds to it, and I'm also adding raw and unfiltered honey to it as well, and a little bit. So this is everything that I'm using right here. Might times about a cup of water. Okay, so before we get started, y'all, look at this lovely knife that I have, and I'm gonna have a link down in the description box. This knife was handmade in Japan. Days, more than 1/3.
Picture and imagine going from living paycheck to
swap out their lobster for inexpensive substitutes in their dishes, but you're going to pay for that lobster price. And so a report done by Inside Edition, they ran DNA tests on lobster dishes from 28 restaurants across the country. 35% of the samples contained cheaper seafood, such as whiting and something called langostino. While langostino means little lobster in Spanish, the crustacean is more similar to a hermit crab. So you're eating hermit crab. You're eating hermit crab. Oh my gosh. That's crazy. Number 3 on the list is Kobe beef. While restaurants across the U.S. offer menu items like the Cheesecake Factory's Kobe burgers and pricey Kobe steaks, the vast majority of these claims are false. Only 8 restaurants in the entire U.S. serve real Kobe beef. So what exactly are people eating and paying for, and they're not getting it? So it says, since Kobe beef costs more than $20 an ounce, if you're purchasing something that is supposedly made of Kobe beef and isn't absurdly expensive, you're probably being scammed. So buyer beware. This next one on the list, I am guilty of buying, because in the world of go and convenience, and when you're cooking and you're in a hurry, you're like, I don't want that extra step of grating anything. So what do? You go buy that container of Parmesan cheese for your meals. Well, you might want to think twice if you're doing that, because right now I'm thinking twice about it. So it says, in February 2017, Bloomberg News tested store bought grated cheese for cellulose, revealing that all of the cheeses called 100% grated Parmesan cheese tested contained the anti-clumping additive made of wood pulp. Wood pulp. It says, while cellulose is a safe additive, an acceptable level is 2% to 4%, according to the cheese technologist Dean Sommer. Cheesemakers often mix in higher levels of the wood pulp when making cheese because it is less expensive than pure Parmesan. So I'm gonna have to beware and really think twice about purchasing that, even though it's a convenience, maybe buying that whole cheese and grating it up and just putting it in the refrigerator like that. So we shall see. We shall see. Next on the list is red snap. This is not something that I would order because I already know it's expensive. But according to an expert involved in DNA species testing, 94% of the time you order fish labeled red snapper, it is actually a different fish. A rule of thumb, if the fish is expensive and you haven't seen it displayed whole, there's a good chance it's an imitation fish. And even then, it's hard to differentiate between wild caught and farm fresh. Now, this item is truly for the rich, but it is truffles. So if you're out there and you know from time to time you might want to get a little bit of truffle in your life, beware. It says real truffles are trendy, prized, and extremely rare. If it's not shaved in front of you, your truffle is likely simply a chemical combination, especially if it's marketed as truffle oil. So you might not be getting what you're paying for. And I heard that that was very expensive. Next on the list is something that we all use, and it is olive oil. So it says that fake versions of olive oil are extraordinarily common, with retailers passing off other seed oils, including soybean oil, peanut oil, and sunflower seed oil, as the real thing. Consuming fake olive oil can seriously affect your health and have health consequences because a lot of people are allergic to certain things, such as in 1981 in Spain, where 20,000 people consumed so-called olive oil that was in fact rapeseed oil, containing a poisonous toxin called aniline. So y'all beware. Check your ingredients. It's supposed to be labeled. Hopefully it is. Also, last on the list is honey. More than 75% of, and I'm about to use, and I use honey in my smoothies all the time. But I try to use the 100%. Okay. More than 75% of the honey sold in the U.S. grocery stores contain ingredients other than pure honey. And that is according to Food Safety News. Honey is frequently watered down and cut with corn and fructose syrup to decrease the cost. They're adding sugar to it and they're adding corn to it. That's crazy. Further, some retailers mislabel certain types of honey as a more expensive and popular type, such as Manuka honey, to hike up the prices. So y'all, they trying to get us any way they can get us. So I hope this was news you can use. Share it if you can. Hit that like.
Okay. Any comments on that? Anybody got any comments on that? Okay.
We got to do a lot of research on our foods that we do eat.
Oh yeah, you got to go out the way and read those labels, and again, information like this, you go to the grocery store already alert, looking for that type of stuff. Okay.
Yes, sir. Another thing we have to look for is the red 40 in all of the products like the cereal, the chips. Anything has red 40 in it, they say that it is not good.
What is that?
It's a chemical they put in the it's called red 40 that they put in the foods to keep it fresh, I believe.
Okay, yeah,
But
right. Like the meats and stuff.
no, the products like easy eat like chips and
Oh,
cereal
make
and
preservative.
candy and stuff that. Yes, sir.
Okay. Yeah, I try to stay away from that anyway. Chips and all that type of stuff. That's they're doing something to that. Okay. Anybody else got anything? Comments? Okay. I'm in the Book of Esther. I'm gonna just start reading it. Um, start at chapter 1, verse 1. Let me get it. Okay. Okay. Here we go. Okay. It says, now it came to pass in the days of Ahaz. Okay, days of Ahaz, which reigned from India even to Ethiopia, over 107 and 20 provinces. That in those days, when the king Ahaz sat on his throne of his kingdom, which was in Shushan, the palace, in the third year of his reign, he made a feast unto all his princes and his servants, the power of Persia and Media, the nobles and the princes and the providence being before him. When he showed the riches of his kingdom, of his glorious kingdom, and the honor of his excellent majesty, many days, even 180 days. And when these days were expired, the king made a feast unto all the people that were present in Shushan, the palace, both unto great and small, 7 days in the court of the garden of the king's palace. There were white, green, and blue hangings fastened with cords of fine linen and purple, to silver rings and pillows and marble. The beds were of gold and silver upon a pavement of red and blue and white and black and marble. And they gave them drink and the vessels of gold. The vessels are being diverse one from another, and royal wine in abundance according to the state of the king, and the drinking was according to the law. None did compel, for so the king had appointed to all the officers of his house that they should do according to every man's pleasure. Also Vesta, the queen, made a feast for the women in her royal house, which belonged to the king Ahasuerus. On the seventh day, when the heart of the king was merry with wine, he commanded, uh, I can't say these names, Mayhem, Bizza, Harbana, Bigtha, Abigath, Zethar, and Carcass, and the seven chamberlains that served in the presence of Ahasuerus the king. So, like I was saying before, notice how he got seven chamberlains in front of him, just like Yahweh got the seven angels. He got these seven chamberlains in front of him. Just the reason why, when Daniel was explaining the statue to Nebuchadnezzar, he said, "Thou art the head of gold," because Nebuchadnezzar had first-hand experience with the Lord of hosts and with those angels. So he knew the order. He saw it. So all they doing is what Nebuchadnezzar did. Nebuchadnezzar had seven men in front of him, just like ours got seven in front of him. So if you count those men right there in verse 10, you'll see it's seven. It even tells you seven chamberlain. So let's just go right quick to Nebuchadnezzar right quick in Jeremiah. Go to Jeremiah chapter 39, I think it is, right quick. You'll see what I'm talking about. And a lot of people look over this, but it's important. So I'm in Jeremiah 39. This is Jeremiah 39 is when Nebuchadnezzar came and Jerusalem fell. It says, in the ninth year, Zedekiah, king of Judah, in the 10th month, came Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, and all his army against Jerusalem. And they besieged it. And in the 11th year of Zedekiah, in the 4th month, the 9th day of the month, the city was broken up. And here we go right here. And all the princes, see that? All the princes of the kingdom of Babylon came in and sat in the middle gate. Now these are men of stature, these giants. So it says, and all the princes of the king of Babylon came in, sat in the middle gate. Even here you go, get their names. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Then go down to verse 9. Then Nebuzaradan, captain of the guard, Nebuzaradan, the king, the Lord of hosts of Nebuchadnezzar's kingdom, but it's 7 of them. 6 up here in verse 3 and verse 9, 7. So they got this from looking at the Lord of hosts, looking at Yahweh's kingdom. That's where they're getting it from. That's why Daniel told Nebuchadnezzar, you the head of gold. Everything, all the rest of the kingdom's pattern after that. Okay, so I'm back over in Esther. And it says, verse 11, to bring Vesta, the queen, before the king with a crown or crown royal, to show the people and the princes her beauty, for she was fair to look on. But Queen Vesta refused to come at the king's command by his chamberlain. Therefore was the king very wroth, and his anger was burned in him. So let's look at that, because we see right over here. Let's go back and look at it. We see that King Ahasuerus, he had this big old feast. What's going on is his father had went over into Greece and fought with Greece, and they had conquered him, and they had ran him off. So Ahasuerus is coming behind him, and he's getting ready to go over there to revenge his father. So that's the reason he had this big festival. You know, a lot of people don't know that, but he getting ready to go there. And this is what brought Alexandria to Middle East, because what he done when he went over there, he sacked Greece, he sacked Athens. Anyway, so that was brought later. The third beast was brought Alexandria to the Middle East. So anyway, it says, so he set up this big old feast and all this for his kingdom. But notice what it says Vesta, his wife, his queen, did in verse 9. Vesta, the queen, she made her own feast, separate from what he doing. She made her own feast. See that? Also in verse 9, Vesta, queen, made a feast for the women in her royal house, which belonged to the king herself. So you would say, okay, well, what you saying? What that mean? Well, look at what happened. It says, verse 11. So he sent these 7 chamberlains, right, to get her, to bring her out, right? 11. To bring Vesta the queen before the king with the crown royal, to show the people, right? To show the people, the princess, her beauty, for she was fair to look on. But, see that? Queen Vesta refused. She'd already been expecting it up here. So anyway, it said, but the Queen Vesta refused to come at the king's command by his chamberlain. Therefore was the king very wroth, and his anger burned in him. This is started the wheels turning with Esther. Okay, so it says, then the king said to the wise men which knew the times, for so was the king's manner toward all that knew the law and the judgment. And the next unto him was Carcina, said that these the same one, same chamberlain. They next to him, just like these 7 angels next to Yahweh. So it says, the 7 princes of Persia and Media, which saw the king's face, and which sat the first in the kingdom. So if you go back to Enoch, Enoch said he saw this building, fire all around it, but he saw these 7 angels. They was the only ones that were able to go into there in the presence of the Lord, or the Yahweh. So we see the same thing right here. It says 14, and the next unto him was, it lists these 7 princes of Media and Persia, which saw the king's face, just like the 7 angels. They see Yahweh's face. We can't, but they can, because they made out of the, when he formed them from the same substance he formed himself from. So anyway, 15 says, what shall we do unto the queen Vesta according to the law? Because she have not performed the commandments of the king Ahasuerus by the chamberlains, right? And Mecan answered before the king and the princess, Vesta the queen has not done wrong to the king only, but also to all the princes and to all the people that are in all the providence of the kingdom of Ahasuerus. So Mecan, this guy in verse 16, he's the Lord of hosts. Out of the 7, he's the Lord of hosts. Okay, remember that. So 17, was this deed of the queen shall come abroad unto all women, so that they shall despise their husbands in their eyes when it shall be reported. King Ahasuerus commanded Vesta the queen to be brought in before him, but she came not. Likewise shall the ladies of the Persia and Media say this day unto all the king's princes which have heard of the deeds of the queen. Thus shall there arise too much contempt and wrath. Right? If it please the king, let there be a royal commandment for him, and let it be written among the laws of Persia and the Medes, that it be not altered, that Vesta come no more before the king Ahasuerus, and let the king give her a royal estate unto another, that is better than she. So this is what brings Esther on the scene. So it says, and when the king's decree which he shall make shall be published, therefore all his empire, for it is great, all the wives shall give to their husband honor, both to the great and the small. And the sayings pleased the king and the princess, and the king did according to the words of Mecan. Right, let me get this. Words of Mecan, okay. This is chapter 2, verse 22, chapter 1, verse 22. And he sent letters into all the king's provinces, even every province according to the writings thereof, and to every people after their language, that every man should bear rule in his own house, and that it shall be published according to the language of every people. So that was chapter 1. Any comments, questions so far? Anybody got comments or questions on chapter 1? Okay, everybody good? Chapter 2, this is estimated queen. After these things, when the wrath of the king Ahasuerus was appeased, he remembered Vesta and what she had done and what was decreed against her. Then the king and the king's servants that ministered unto him, let there be a fair young virgins sought for the king, and let the king appoint officers in all the provinces of his kingdom, that they may gather together all the fair young virgins unto Shushan the palace, to the house of women, unto the custody of Heg, king's chamberlain, keeper of the women, and let their things for purification be given them, and let the maidens which pleases the king uh, be queen instead of Vesta, and the thing pleased the king, and he did so. Now in Shushan the palace there was a certain Jew, Israelite, whose name was Mordecai, the son of Jair, the son of Shema, son of Kish, a Benjamite, who had been carried. Here we go, right here. So I want to shine light on this. So it says, who had been carried away from Jerusalem with the captivity which had been carried away with Jeconiah, the king of Judah, whom Nebuchadnezzar, the king of Babylon, had carried away. And he brought up Hadassah, that is Esther, his uncle's daughter, for she had neither father nor mother, and the maid was fair and beautiful, whom Mordecai, when her father and mother were dead, took for his own daughter. So it came to pass, when the king's commandments and his decree was heard, and when many maidens were gathered together unto Shushan the palace, to the custody of Heg, that Esther was brought also unto the king's house, to the custody of Heg, keeper of the women. And the maiden pleased him, and she obtained kindness of him, and he speedily gave her her things for purification, with such things as belonged to her, and 7 maidens which were met to be given her out of the king's house. And he preferred her and her maidens unto the best place of the house of women. Esther had not showed her people nor kindred, for Mordecai had charged her that she should not show it. And Mordecai walked every day before the court of the women's house, to know how Esther did and what should become of her. Now, when every maiden turn was come to go in to the king Ahasuerus, after that she had been 12 months, according to the manner of women, for so were the days of her purification accomplished, to wit, 6 months with oil of myrrh, and 6 months with sweet odors, and with other things for the purification of the woman. Then thus came every maiden unto the king, or whatsoever she desired was given her to go with her out of the house of women into the king's house. In the evening she went, and on the morrow she returned into the second house of the women, to the custody of Shagag, the king's chamberlain, which kept the concubines. She came in unto the king no more, except the king delighted in her, and that she was called by name. Now, when the turn of Esther, the daughter of Abihail, uncle of Mordecai, who had taken her for his daughter, was come to go into the king, she required nothing but what Hag, the king chamberlain, the keeper of the women appointed. And Esther obtained favor in the sight of all them that looked upon her. So Esther was taken into the king Ahasuerus into his house, royal in his house, royal in the 10th month, which is the month of Tebet, in the 7th year of his reign. And the king loved Esther above all the women, and she obtained grace and favor in his sight more than all the virgins, so that he set the royal crown upon her head and made her queen instead of Esther. Then the king made a great feast and to all his princes and his servants, even Esther feast, and he made a release to the providence and gave gifts according to the state of the king. And when the virgins were gathered together the second time, when Mordecai sat in the king's gate, Esther had not yet showed her kindred nor her people, as Mordecai had charged her, for Esther did the commandments of Mordecai, like as when she was brought up with him. In those days, while Mordecai sat in the king's gate, two of the king's chamberlain, Bigthan and Teresh, of those which kept the door, were wroth and sought to lay hands on King Ahasuerus. And the thing was known to Mordecai, who told it unto Esther the queen, and Esther certified the king thereof in Mordecai's name. And when the acquisitions were made of the matter, it was found out. Therefore, they were both hanged on the tree, and it was written in the book of the Chronicles before the king. So that was Esther chapter 2. Anybody have any comments? Anything stick out they want to shine a light on? Okay, so let me shine a light on something real quick. So it says, notice that he sends out to all his kingdom, which take us back to the point I keep on making in Ezra, where it says in the first year of Cyrus, it's Ezra chapter 1. In the first year of Cyrus, king of Persia, that a word of the Lord by the mouth of Jeremiah might be fulfilled, the Lord stirred up the spirit of Cyrus, king of Persia, that he made a proclamation throughout all his kingdom, right, and put it in writing. So this Cyrus kingdom at the time. So Ahasuerus, Cyrus did, now Ahasuerus came into a power. It's the same kingdom. And like I was saying before, the 10 tribes is taken to Assyria. Assyria is one of these provinces. There's 120 provinces. Assyria is one of them. So he goes on to say in Ezra chapter 1, verse 2, thus says Cyrus, king of Persia, the Lord God of heaven, hath given me all the kingdoms of the earth, and he hath charged me to build him a house in Jerusalem, which is in Judea. Who is there among you of all his people? Let his God be with him, and let him go up to Jerusalem, which is in Judea, and build a house of the Lord of Israel. He is God, which is in Jerusalem. So we see right here, he got control of the 10 tribes as well as the southern kingdom. So he made his commandment right there that all of them can go up. And you see the same thing over here with Esther. He says they sent out, got all the virgins from all 27 provinces and brought them to. So that's including the Israelites over in Assyria as well as his Israelites in Babylon. So he sent out and got virgins, acceptable virgins from all 127 provinces. That they got to be understood. So anyway, I read chapter 2, I think. Let me see. Yeah. So I'm in chapter 3. So,
Shalom.
yeah.
Yes, sir. So I've been reading up a little bit on it, far as the purification for them. They said
Right.
that they would take and put the perfume, well, they'll build a fire and they'll place the perfume in it, and then it will burn, and they would be in that room with their robes on to purify themselves. So there will be no clothes, just a robe, and until that fire pit in the middle of the room burns down, then that would say that they were purified. And it's perfume, and the perfume was sandalwood, clove, myrrh, and rose. They would place that in there to burn and heat the fire, and the women could, stand around it, and that's how their bodies consume the perfume. Their robes and their bodies consume the perfume. That was one of the ways to purification.
Right. Yeah, right. Yeah, so that goes. I mean, you know, that's one of the things that, or that, well, when you got today's world and us being over here amongst these Gentiles, we don't understand that our customs and all that is totally different from theirs. So where did they get this from? Well, when you go back to Leviticus and go back to our laws, it was certain things that women couldn't do. Like when they time came for their cycle, they couldn't be around they couldn't be around their kids, they couldn't be around the man, none of that. They had just like he's saying right here, ARs had a chamberlain, a man that was over the women's house, the house where the women was at. They wasn't around the man like they got it now. They wasn't around the man 24/7, eating in the same house, communicating all the time. They live separate, just like with Abraham. Sarah ain't live with Abraham. Sarah had her own tent, and then if he had more than one wife, he would summon for her, send for her, or whatever. But it wasn't like we doing now. That's where a lot of the drama coming from. But it wasn't like they wasn't living together in the same house, community in the same house. David had 7 wives. Each one of them had their own area. And then according to their cycle, which is what the Most High created, they had to be in a when that time came, they had another house they was in. They couldn't be around the kids or around him. But now all that's been knocked down. That's why there's so much drama going on now. Because all that in a way humbled the situation. Because you know when you know what you gonna do when that time comes. What you got to say about that? You got to give me that's something the Most High set in place. You have to go where you're supposed to be at when that time comes. It's not, you can't come up with no, riffraff to get around there. And that's a lot of the things that happen to us. So we
Shalom.
see them doing it. We see him doing the same thing. Yeah, go ahead.
Yes, sir. And so it may not relate to this, but as we were shown on television, the sitcom Lucille Ball, they always showed them in 2 separate beds, even though they were married and had a child. They always
Right,
showed them in 2 separate beds. So I always was puzzled
right,
about that little part that they threw in there, but they probably knew that
yeah.
they were not supposed to be like, in one bed together.
Right. They Jews. They Jews. Oh, Ricky and Lucy about Jews. So this ain't just started. They've been putting those things in our faces, but we wasn't paying no attention to it. They've been doing that. Yeah, they Jews. That's what Hollywood is all predominantly Jews, and they play out their agendas in our face through Hollywood. If you go back, I remember this guy saying that like all the scenes, everything in that scene is orchestrated. Every time, each scene that you watch in a movie is orchestrated. You got to look at everything in that scene because it's playing some purpose, according to them. Yeah. But I was going to try to read. I was going to read this. Yeah, it says, verse 12, verse 2, based on what you were saying. It says, now when every maid turn was come to go into the king, right? After that, she had been 12 months. See what I'm saying? 12 months. But when they come in contact with a woman and she wanted to, and the queen saw favor in her, whatever, it took 12 months for her to get to him. See, it says, now, when every maid turn was come to go into the king, after that, she had 12 months, according to the manner of the woman. For so were the days of their purification. See that accomplished, to wit, 6 months of oil and myrrh, and then 6 months of sweet savor. So it took, between the two of them, it took them a whole year to be prepared to go see the king. Don't quite show same thing going on with the regular people too, but it probably wasn't a year, but He wasn't. It ain't like nothing that be going on. And he noticed what he's saying, according to the manner of a woman. So something we don't know. They took away from us, but he said, according to the manner of the woman, they doing this. We ain't doing none of that now. Okay, so anyway,
Shalom.
so chapter 2. Okay, go ahead.
Could it be the age of the woman? Because they all were, um, or virgins. So could it have been of the age of the woman, of the child? I mean, of the virgin woman, waited until she became
No,
of
I
age.
think it's tied to the cycle. Because if you go back to when a boy is born, certain amount of time has to pass for the woman, and then when a girl is born, a certain amount of time has to pass. So I think it's tied to the cycle because of the man, based on when he created the woman, it's a discharge, but it's not one with the man. I think that's what it's tied to the cycle, and being that she bringing other humans into the world, so her body's made different, and they, like I said, they're not the same, and so that goes back to you got mankind, right? But you got just say you got hummingbirds. You got all different type of hummingbirds. So when you say a mankind, you got woman, you got man and woman, but the woman ain't like the man. So go back to the seed. When you have a kid, that it's a male. She can have a male, which is one seed, or she can have a female. That's another seed. Because she ain't like the male. The male is, and the woman and the male is different. It's two different seeds. So like I was saying, which I don't never really deal with because of, I guess it ain't the most high timing, but when he said it's going to be enmity between the serpent and her seed, woman, of the other women, they ain't talking about no boy, because she a different seed. So then you say, what are you talking about? Go to Genesis 6. Let's look at it right quick. I don't want to digress, but go to Genesis chapter 6. And then you see it right here in your face. It says, let me get it. Yeah, Genesis chapter 6, verse 1. And it came to pass, which when they say that means that it's tied to a prophecy. So to me, take it back to Genesis, or what he said about the woman and her seed. He said, it came to pass when men began to multiply on the face of the earth, daughters, see that, were born unto them, that the sons of God. So when daughters, woman seed, other daughters like Eve was born, that's when the angels came down. That'll go to enmity. He said it's going to be enmity between the serpent seed and her seed. And her seed is other daughters. Okay, yeah. So, but so I just that's one of them things I got on the shelf. Okay. So anyway, any comments? So chapter 3, this is Esther chapter 3, says, after these things did King Ahasuerus promote Haman, the son of Hammedatha the Agagite, and advance him and set his seat above all the princes that were with him, and all the king's servants and that were in the king's gate bowed and referenced Haman, for the king had so commanded concerning him, but Mordecai bowed not, for did him nor did him any reference. So when you go back in verse 1, you see this guy Haman. Everybody should know this, but Haman, but notice he's an Agagite. So what's an Agagite? That's a go back to Saul, when Saul was commanded to kill all the Amalekites. Saul didn't kill all the Amalekites. He saved Agag. And that's what the Agagite is. Agag, he come from him. So the seed right here, the reason Haman the way he is, and the anger that's in him is because of he was killed. His whole household was killed by the Israelites. The Lord of hosts had commanded Saul killed all the Israelites, all the Aggites, and Saul saved it. But they tricked the story off because of not only did Saul save Agag, but Saul saved his wife too, and his wife was with child. So let's look at that right quick. And you gotta know this. So let's go to I'm in Apocrypha. I'll read it if nobody else will have Apocrypha. So in the Apocrypha, it's got a book in there called the Editions of Esther. Let's look at it right quick. Okay, let me get it. I don't know what page it's on. Give me a minute. Okay. Yeah, here you go, right here. The Editions of Esther. Let me get to page 27. I'm just gonna read the beginning of it so you can see what I'm talking about. Page 27. So I'm in page 27. It says, in the second year of the reign of Artaxerxes, it's the same king, just Artaxerxes is his Greek name. Aorus is a Persian name. It says, on the first day of the Nisan, Mordecai, son of Jared, son of Shimon, let me go down, of the great man, and I'm like, let me see, okay. Yeah, I'll find it, and I'll bring it up. I'll give you the verses. But anyway, in that Dishes of Esther, it tells you that Agag had a wife. Saul not only did Saul save Agag, but Agag had convinced Saul to let him and his wife live. And so by the time Samuel get there, Samuel killed Agag because Saul didn't. So when Samuel got there, he asked him, Saul, when you commanded to kill all the Amalekites? And Saul said he saved the king alive, and so Agag hewed him up. I mean, Samuel took out his sword and killed him, chopped him up. But before that, Agag's wife had escaped in the night, and they always had these caravans. She got picked up by one of these caravans the same way Joseph did, and that caravan took her into Medes and Persia. She was pregnant with child. This is Agag's son right here, Haman. That's why he hates the Jews so much, because the Israelites had destroyed his whole nation and killed his father. So let me pick it back up. Let me get I'm in Esther chapter 2, chapter 3, verse 2. And all the king's servants that were in the king's gate bowed and reverenced Haman, for the king had so commanded concerning him, but Mordecai bowed not, nor did him any reverence. Then the king's servants which were in the king's gate said unto Mordecai, why transgressest thou the king's commandment? Now it came to pass, when they spake daily unto him, and he hearkened not unto them, that they told Haman to see whether Mordecai's matters would stand, for he had told them that he was a Jew. And when Haman saw that Mordecai bowed not, nor did him reverence, then was Haman full of wrath, and he thought scorn to lay hands on Mordecai alone, for they had showed him the people of Mordecai. Wherefore Haman sought to destroy all the Jews that were throughout the whole kingdom. See that? Throughout the whole kingdom. So you got Jews that Nebuchadnezzar brought, Israelites Nebuchadnezzar brought, but you also got Israelites that the king of Assyria brought. So they scattered throughout the whole kingdom. Verse 7 says, in the first month, that is the month of Nisan, in the 12th year of King Ahaz, they cast a pur, that is the lot, before Haman from day to day, and from month to month, to the 12th month, that is the month of Adar. And Haman said unto the King Ahaz, there was a certain people scattered abroad and dispersed among the people in all the provinces. There it is again. In all the provinces of our kingdom. and their laws are diverse from all people. Neither keep they the king's laws. Therefore, it is not for the king's profit to suffer them. If it please the king, let it be written that they may be destroyed. And I will pay 10,000 talents of silver to the hands of those that have the charge of the business to bring it into the king's treasury. And the king took his ring from his hand and gave it unto Haman, the son of Mathadah the Agagite. The Jews are enemies. And the king said unto Haman, the silver is given to thee, the people also to do with them as it seemeth good unto thee. Then were the king's scribes called on the 13th day of the month, and there was written according to all that Haman had commanded unto the king's lieutenants and unto the governors that were over every province, and to the rulers of every people of every province according to the writing thereof, and to every people after their language. In the name of King Ahasuerus was it written and sealed with the king's ring, and the letters were sent by post into all the king's provinces to destroy and to kill and to cause to perish all Jews, Israelites, both young and old, little children and women, in one day, even until the 13th day of the 12th month, which is the month of Adar, and to take spoils of them for a prey. The copy of the writing for the commandment to be given in every province was published unto all people, that they should be ready against that day. The post went out, being hastened by the king's commandment, and the decree was given in Shushan the palace. And the king and Haman sat down to drink, but the city of Shushan was perplexed. So that was Esther chapter 3. Any comments on that? What you heard, what was read?
No, sir.
Okay. So chapter 4. This is when Mordecai perceived all that was done. Mordecai rent his clothes, put on sackcloth with ashes, and went out into the midst of the city and cried with a loud and bitter voice, and came even before the king's gate, for none might enter into the king's gate clothed with sackcloth. And in every province, whithersoever the king's commandment and his decree came, there was a great mourning among the Jews, and fasting and weeping and wailing, and many lay in sackcloth and ashes. So Esther's maids and her chamberlains came and told her. Then was the queen exceedingly grieved, and she sent raiment to clothe Mordecai and to take away his sackcloth from him, but he received it not. Then called Esther for Haman for let me see, for Ahab, one of the king's chamberlain, whom he had appointed to attend unto her, and gave him a commandment to Mordecai to know what it was and why it was. So Hatchett went forth to Mordecai unto the streets of the city, which was before the king's gate. And Mordecai told him all that had happened to him, and the sum of the money that Haman had promised to pay to the king's treasury for the Jews to destroy them. Also he gave him a copy of the writings of the decree that was given at Shushan to destroy them, to show it unto Esther, and to declare it unto her, and to charge her that she should go in unto the king to make supplication unto him, and to make requests before him for her people. And Hatshepsut came and told Esther the words of Mordecai. And again Esther spake unto Hatshepsut, and gave him commandments unto Mordecai. All the king's servants and the people of the king's province do know that whosoever, whether a man or woman, shall come in to the king into the inner court, who is not called, there is one law of his to put him to death, except such as to whom the king shall hold out his golden scepter, that he may live. But I have not been called to come in unto the king. these 30 days. And they told to Mordecai Esther's words. Then Mordecai commanded to answer Esther, think it not with thyself that thou shalt escape in the king's house more than all the Israelites. For if thou altogether hold thy peace at this time, then shall their enlargement and deliverance arise to the Israelites from another place. But thou and thy father's house shall be destroyed. And who knoweth whether thou art come to the kingdom for such a time as this? Then Esther bade them which are to return Mordecai this answer. Go gather together all the Israelites that are present in Shushan, and fast ye for me, and neither eat nor drink 3 days, not 3 days, night or day. I also and my maidens will fast likewise, and so will I go in unto the king, which is not according to the law, and if I perish, I perish. So Mordecai went his way and did according to all that Esther had commanded him. Okay, that was chapter 4. Any comments? Everybody good?
Yes,
Okay,
sir.
chapter 5.
I'm good. I'm good. Continue.
Chapter 5. This is courage of Esther. Now it came to pass on the third day that Esther put on her royal apparel and stood in the inner court of the king's house, over against the king's house. And the king sat upon his royal throne in his royal house, over against the gates of the house. And it was so, when the king saw Esther, the queen, standing in the court, that she obtained favor in his sight. And the king held out to Esther the golden scepter that was in his hand. So Esther drew near and touched the top of the scepter. Then said the king unto her, what wilt thou, Queen Esther, and what is thy request? It shall be given thee to the half of the kingdom. And Esther answered, if it seem good unto the king, let the king and Haman come this day unto the banquet that I have prepared for him. Then the king said, cause Haman to make haste, that he may do as Esther had said. So the king and Haman came to the banquet that Esther had prepared. And the king said unto Esther at the banquet of wine, what is thy petition? And it shall be granted thee. And what is thy request? Even to the half of the kingdom it shall be performed. Then answered Esther and said, my petition and my request is, if I have found favor in the sight of the king, and if it please the king to grant my petition and to perform my request, let the king and Haman come to the banquet that I shall prepare for them, and I will do tomorrow as the king has said. Then went Haman forth that day joyful and with glad heart. But when Haman saw Mordecai in the king's gate, that he stood not up, nor moved for him. He was full of indignation against Mordecai. Nevertheless, Haman refrained himself, and when he came home, he sent and called for his friends and Sarai his wife. And Haman told them of the glory of his riches and the multitude of his children, and all the things wherein the king had promoted him, and how he had advised him above the princes and the servants of the king. Haman said, moreover, yea, after the queen did let no man come in with the king to the banquet that she had prepared but myself. And tomorrow I am invited unto her also with the king. Yet all this event availeth me nothing. So long as I see Mordecai, the Israelites sitting at the king's gate. Then said Zeresh, his wife, and all his friends unto him, let a gallows be made of 50 cubits high, and tomorrow speak thou unto the king that Mordecai may be hanged thereon. Then go thou in merrily with the king unto the banquet. And the thing pleased Haman, and he caused the gallows to be made. Okay, any comments? Want to read one more chapter? said the king reminded of Mordecai's service. And on that night could not the king sleep, and he commanded to bring the book of the records of the chronicles, and they were read before the king. And it was found written that Mordecai had told uh, or brought back the near and Teresh, two of the king's chamberlains, the keepers of the door, who sought to lay hands on King Ahaz. And the king said, "What honor and dignity have been done to Mordecai for this?" Then said the king's servants that ministered unto him, "There is nothing done for him." And the king said, "Who was in the court?" Now Haman was come in the outward court of the king's house to speak unto the king to hang Mordecai on the gallows that he had prepared for him. And the king's servant said unto him, "Behold, Haman standeth in the court." And the king said, "Let him come in." And Haman came in, and the king said unto him, "What shall be done unto the man whom the king delighted to honor?" Now Haman thought in his heart, "To whom would the king delighted to honor more than to myself?" And Haman answered the king, "For the man whom the king delighted to honor, let a royal apparel be brought, which the king used to wear, and the horse that the king rideth upon, and a crown royal which is set upon his head. And let the apparel and the horse be delivered to the hands of one of the king's most notable princes, that they may array the man with whom the king delighted to honor, and bring him on horseback through the streets of the city, and proclaim before him, Thus shall it be done to the man whom the king delighteth to honor." Then the king said to Haman, "Make haste, and take the apparel and the horse, as thou hast said, and do even to Mordecai the Jew, that sitteth at the king's gate. Let nothing fail of all that thou hast spoken." Then took Haman the apparel and the horse, and arrayed Mordecai, and brought him on a horseback through the streets of the city, and proclaimed before him, "Thus shall it be done unto the man whom the king delighteth to honor." Mordecai came again to the king's gate, but Haman hasted to his house mourning, and having his head covered. And Haman told Zeresh, his wife, and all his friends everything that had been following him. Then said his wise men, the wise men, and Zeresh, his wife, unto him, "If Mordecai be of these the seed of the Israelites, before whom thou hast begun to fall, thou shalt not prevail against him, but shalt surely fall before him." And while they were yet talking with him, came the king's chamberlain, and hastened to bring Haman into the banquet that Esther had prepared. Okay, so that was chapter 6. So let me read this. Chapter 7 says, "So the king and Haman came to the banquet with Esther, the queen, and the king uh, said again unto Esther on the second day at the banquet of the wine, What is the petition, Queen Esther? And it shall be granted thee. And what is thy request, that it shall be performed, even the half of the kingdom?" Then Esther the queen answered and said, "If I have found favor in thy sight, O king, and if it please the king, let my life be given me at my petition, and my people at my request. For we are sold, I and my people, to be destroyed, or to be slain, and to perish. But if we have been sold for bondmen and bondwomen, I had held my tongue, although the enemy could not uh, countervail the king's damage. Then the king Ahaz answered and said unto Esther, Queen, who is he, and where is he that doeth presume in his heart to do so? And Esther said, The adversary and the enemy is the wicked Haman. Then Haman was afraid before the king and the queen. And the king, arising from the banquet of wine in his wrath, went into the palace garden, and Haman stood up to make a request for his life to Esther the queen, for he saw that there was evil determined against him by the king. Then the king returned out of his palace garden into the place of the banquet of wine, and Haman was fallen upon the bed whereon Esther was. Then said the king, will he force the queen also before me in the house? As the words went out of the king's mouth, they covered Haman's face. And Harbonah, one of the king's chamberlains, said before the king, behold also the gallows of 50 cubits high, which Haman had made for Mordecai, who had spoken good for the king, standeth in the house of Haman. Then the king said, hang him therein. So they hanged Haman on the gallows that he had prepared for Mordecai. Then was the king's wrath pacified. Okay, so we see the Lord of hosts at work again, just what what the enemy had set up for them for good, uh, for evil. The Most High made it good. And the thing about it that this took out with me was he said, notice that he asked Haman what it is that you think the man should get. Haman spoke it out of his own mouth and glorified it and brought about his own demise out of his own mouth. And if you go back to the Pharaoh did the same thing. Moses brought the 9 plagues. And then he told him, if you don't let my people go, whatever you pronounce on them is going to be pronounced on you. And so the Pharaoh said that all the firstborn going to die. So what he did was pronounce it on himself. So that's how all the firstborn of the Egyptians and all the firstborn of the cattle and everything died. The Pharaoh himself pronounced it on his own self. And we see the same thing happen with Haman. He pronounced his own demise on his own self, out his own mouth. Okay. Any comments? No comments?
No, sir. I enjoyed it so far.
Okay, so
Okay.
yeah. So I think it'll do everybody some good if you go and watch that movie, One Night with the King. Because like I was saying before, the way it comes on, you know, they're showing where Agag saw, Samuel killing Agag, but they show in the movie when they first come on. This is how I found out about this information. So I was looking at it because I feel like I'm kind of apt at the scriptures, and I was like, where is this coming from? They show Samuel killing Agag, but they showed his wife running off into the desert, and then she get picked up by this caravan. So I was like, where is this coming from? So I went and started doing my research and come to find out that it was in the editions of Esther over in the Apocryphal books. Yeah. And like I was saying, these Jews the one run Hollywood. They got all this information. They run in our face every day. But we ignorant to it. Okay. It's like on the Noah, the movie they made with Noah. They show Tubal-Cain get on the boat, on the ark, jump in the water and swim and get on the side of the ark and get in and climb up and get into the ark. And all these Christians sitting there in the movie theater looking crazy as hell, and saying, what's the hell going on? But that's what happened. He was on the boat. Yeah. So, nobody else had no. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so that's by her being picked up with the caravan, she was pregnant. So that's the descendants. It's continue. And by him not killing when the Most High says kill the ones that's not supposed to be here, and they
Right.
don't, and they leave them out. That's again how the descendants are here today because of
Exactly.
not doing the will. Yes, sir.
Saul not doing the will of God. It's on Saul. He didn't.
Saul, yes.
So that's who the elite. That's who the Illuminati bankers are. All them people today came from Amalekites. They're Amalekite Edomites. That's who they is to this very day. Like the pictures I was showing you the other day.
Yes, sir.
Right. That's why what Saul did right there is carried over to today. The same people who was behind the transatlantic slave trade. Okay. So everybody good?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So I'll see everybody tomorrow at 8 o'clock for our non-American conversation. Shalom.
Shalom, everyone.
Okay.
Shalom.